Leaders, real life leaders.
I see most people have a difficulty with finishing, not starting. I think starting is fun, it's sexy, it's exciting, vision, what if this happened? But yeah, finishing is the hard thing, to actually grind it out, see it to completion. I think that's why it's most difficult for people, and for me too.
Hey guys, welcome to the Real Life Leadership Podcast, where we share real life stories from real life leaders to help you become a better leader in your organization. And we were just talking about the fact that some of our stories are a little too real.
It's about to get real.
Yeah.
Right up here.
So I'm excited about this episode. I'm so excited. We always have Heather Remick, who is our COO, and one of our favorite pastors from Ascent Church, Thomas Lane.
Does this make me a regular now?
Yeah.
I'm a regular. It's official.
Yes. It's like,
there you go.
You guys are the regulars.
Love it.
So let's talk about, how do you find people who are starters and finishers? And what I mean by that is, there's tons of people out there that are like, oh, I can start this project and start this and start this and start this, but they never finish it. And there's other people who are like, well, I'm not going to be able to start anything, but I'll be happy to finish it if you tell me what to do.
Yeah.
So how do you figure out, what do you think is the key to go, this person, before we even hire them, let's talk about before we hire them, and we go, okay, what do we need to look at to see if they are that person?
Well, I always use the DISC profiling. I think that's the easiest way. And I think you need to figure out, does this position require a starter and a finisher? Or is this position a starter position or a finisher? Because I think there are some that are just finishers and there are some that are starters. And then you need to decide which way you need to go with it.
Wait, so let's expand on that.
Yeah.
So what would you say would be a position where all they need to do
is finish
or start?
Yeah, sure. A finisher, I think, is just, your everyday admin. They have tasks to complete every day. They don't have to come up with new content. They just need to come in and do their same job every single day. We just need them to complete a task list every day. That's a finisher. You don't need them to come up with new stuff technically.
My starters are like the dreamers, like the big picture leaders, always doing, which is good and bad, because I mean, kind of what you touched on, there's 1,000 things going at once. These are the people I really feel like I have to be the brakes to, you know what I'm saying? Almost slow down, take a breath. What is the best thing we need to focus on here and today? And really knocking that out. But no, that's fine. It's a good image. It's a good
Well,
image.
I think there's also a difference. What would you say is the difference between someone who's a starter and a finisher versus a doer and a thinker? How are those different?
That's tough. I think they're definitely related. That's hard. That's a really challenging question.
I think that a thinker, the difference between a thinker and a starter is that a starter actually creates the idea and gets it going, where a thinker just has the idea.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
And so that's the difference. And you definitely have different places for them in that organization, because there is a clear difference. There are people who have great ideas and they get it step 1, but they can't bring it to step 2, 3, and 4 because they now had another like squirrel, and then they're like starter number 2, and then they've started that one. So
I would say my biggest frustration as a leader actually is this starter finisher, because I feel like if you go look at my office, I literally have things on my desk where I'm like, okay, I need you to complete this, and this, and I have it all written down because of this whole idea that people kind of go, they start, and they just don't have it in them to finish. So what would you say are some tricks or tips to get people to finish?
yeah, so her office does look like a rainbow, in case you were wondering.
That's great.
One of the things that I think that we have to do is, especially if you're in a fast-moving organization, so we're not like a marathon starter finisher. We're like the 100-yard dash starting finisher. Like that's how quickly we move. And so it's one thing to have somebody who's a starter finisher and another who's a starter finisher quickly and efficiently. And so one of the things that I think that we do that's really helping move this process along, because it is the biggest line of frustration, I would say, and I would think most organizations, is saying these 3 items are going to get done this week. Yeah. And I don't care what has to happen, but we have to remove these 3 items off of the list. And so having them have these goals that we meet, and I actually write them on my wall.
Well, I want you each to give a very specific story of a frustration for you. I mean, we said we're going to be real, right?
Yeah. I'll go first.
Just what did they do that made you frustrated where you are like, you're just not finishing this?
Yeah, so we have a wonderful web department. I will start off by saying that.
Yes.
And so we have a new website we launched just a couple days ago. And so they've been working on it for several weeks now. And so last week we talked to them at the beginning of the week and, we're like, let's finish up these final touches so we can kind of get it going. And then we didn't hear anything else. So we met with them on Friday and we said, hey, what's going on with the website? And they're like, oh, that's been ready. We just are waiting. We're waiting on what? They didn't say, hey, we're ready now to launch. Who needs to check this so we can switch it on the server? And so it's so frustrating because it's projects like that get started and then they just go off into space until somebody asks about them. They're like, oh yeah, it's time to bring that back in and let's move it along. Instead of just finishing it to completion and moving it forward.
All right, T-Lane, what about you?
For us, it's all about Sunday, obviously, but there's always things on Sunday we start to implement similar to that, and they just kind of float around. Or they're 75% done. I'll give you a great example. Over the last 6 months, we've always had the audio podcast. We started the YouTube channel, which was hit or miss. So that means we have to have a camera, we have to record it, we have to edit it, we have to make sure the lighting's good. We have new lights at church. We have floor lights, we have vertical lights. We have a confidence monitor, which is the words in case the band gets off or in case people get lost. It gives me a timer so I don't talk all day, which is helpful for everybody. But everything was about 80% done. The system wasn't complete. We would start something, not perfect it, and then move on to something else. And it just made a complete mess on Sunday. A wire wasn't taped down, someone would trip. Someone wasn't handing the video file off for YouTube, so we forgot to update YouTube. The team was so excited to implement new things, they weren't perfecting the process before moving on to the next, and it just made a huge train wreck.
Okay, so let me just recap what I heard you say. So you're saying, okay, we had this great idea. We said we want to film every episode and put it on YouTube and then make best clips and put them on Facebook.
That's what we do,
right?
Yes.
So did it ever get videoed all the way, or you're saying that maybe some days didn't happen?
Some weeks it was, on Sunday, for example, it was set up. I think we missed the first service. We only recorded the second. Some weeks it wasn't properly communicated to the whole team. One guy recorded it. I don't think he had the little, I don't even know what you call it. He didn't have a way to capture it. So he was sitting at the camera, but he didn't actually record anything.
He didn't have the memory card.
Yeah, he didn't have the memory card. So it was a bummer. So if you look back on YouTube, there's a few weeks we don't have anything. And it's just because I think it's because my team is young, they're passionate. It's like the person who has 30 browsers open at the same time. You go in the room, there's this project. I have to be one-track minded. I have to be focused. But, some folks were doing a lot of things. And on Sundays, we have like an hour and a half. And for us, I think it's different. We have this little chunk of time to get in the middle school, unload the trailer, set up, and execute. And we expect excellence. We expect perfection. Some folks will give church one shot. And so we want to give them the best distraction-free experience possible.
Okay,
and
so to fix that, what would you say now looking back on it? If we say, this is important, right? Because honestly, that is really important because there's some Sundays where someone's sick.
Oh,
they don't feel, they're like, I'm not going to church
Someone's
on Sunday.
deployed, just had a baby. There's always people who are counting on that.
Yeah, and so that's important. And it is way more powerful to watch it on YouTube than it is just to hear it. So we have to say as the staff, hey, this is really important. So now what would you do to go, okay, this is really important. How do we fix it?
For us, it's really an after-action review, which we do every Monday, making sure what we did right, what we did wrong. Did we fully prepare? Did everyone know about it? Because it sounds like with the website thing, some people were in the dark. Some people didn't fully understand it. I might fully know the process, but if the whole team doesn't, things are going to get missed. The guy didn't know I was supposed to take the memory card out. Oops.
I would say a checklist, first of all. So the first thing is that way no one can say, hey, do I know about it or not, right? All these little things, someone has to be in charge of going, before we leave, This is very important. Do we have the memory card? Do we have the lights?
Yeah.
Do we have the camera? Do we have that? That would be one. And then the second thing that would be really important would be then the checklist that takes it to the next level.
Yep.
So that's just recording it. Now we have a checklist for this.
Yep.
So one of the things so I'm having an idea here.
I love it.
So basically, we have lots of like lists, right? So she has her colorful rainbow wall, which is great because she's very visual, so
Yes.
she needs to see it. But we have this list on our team site that lists everybody's, what they have on their to-do list, right? And whether it's I want you to research something or whatever. And that's great, and you can look at them. But what I really think we need to see it more visually than just having it in a list is an activity tracker. And so once something gets, instead of just adding it in a list in a sheet, once it gets added to your activity tracker, you need to see where it is at. So like you could easily look at your team and say, where am I at on all of these projects? They can mark it as they go, like in ready for review. And you could see that so that it's much easier to track than just looking at a list and being like, no, I haven't started that yet. No, I haven't started that yet. I think it would be more powerful to see it on the big scale.
I also think for this video one that you talked about, what I would do is I would I would get a volunteer.
Yeah.
That your job,
Yes.
you only have one job.
That's it. Yeah.
Your volunteer job is to make sure we have all of these things,
Yeah.
that it's recorded and that it goes to. Now, you can utilize all of our staff.
Sure.
But your only job every week is to do that. Mm-hmm. That would be a good idea.
For sure.
And I think that a lot of times, people think like that probably just in and of itself would be like maybe a 3-hour commitment, really.
Right.
Like it's not that big of a commitment for someone to do that. And like announcing it, like almost like a spotlight,
Sure.
like for the week. Like we have, because otherwise there's people who want to serve, but they're like, I don't want to serve in children's ministry.
Right.
That's
I
the one
don't
people
want,
go to
yes,
first.
I don't want to do donuts. I don't want to be a greeter. And you almost have like a spotlight each week where you'd say, this week, this is our need. If this is what you'd like to do, the time commitment is this. Isn't that good?
Yeah, we'll train
Yeah.
you. We'll give you everything. Yeah.
Yes.
And even to see the impact, to say, hey, this is reaching.
Would you be
these
willing
hundreds of
to
people.
try that?
Absolutely.
And
That's
then,
a great idea.
And then let's see,
Yeah.
because everything that needs to be done, but in addition to that one piece, my other advice would be, there's one person on staff that it's their responsibility. So I would look at them and go, okay, Bob, if it doesn't get done this week, it doesn't matter that Susie didn't do it,
Yep.
didn't do it, if it doesn't get done, it's coming down on you.
It's on you,
It doesn't
yeah.
matter if the volunteer was out of town. It didn't matter if this happened. This is like putting each person in charge of these 4 things.
Right.
And if it doesn't happen on Sunday, we're coming back to you and saying,
We're having a conversation. Yeah.
Yeah.
this didn't work out.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, what else on the starter and finisher? What are some other examples of things that you say, I can't get these people? I think it's more, for me, it's not a starting problem. For me, it's a finishing problem.
I think, I see most people have a difficulty with finishing, not starting. I think starting is fun, it's sexy, it's exciting, vision, what if this happened? But finishing is the hard thing, to actually grind it out, see it to completion. I think that's why it's most difficult for people, and for me too. Starting is easy. Sticking it out, being patient, suffering through the challenges of it, that's hard.
And I think that's, and to be honest with you, I think that's a lot of the reason why people don't end up finishing is because of in order to finish, you will fail. Nothing that gets started, there's very few things that you end up starting that just are perfect from start to finish. And a lot of the people that are finishers are perfectionists, right? That's why they're really good finishers. They're not good starters because that's just not part of their personality. And the people that are starters, they get to a point and then they're like, oh gosh, this idea that I had isn't going to work out. Yeah. And they're afraid to fail, to modify. And it reminds me of something we listened to recently, and they talked about jumping out of an airplane. And they're like one of my higher profiles as a C. I'm detailed. So before anything, I don't care if it's like I'm about to buy something at the grocery store to a big decision. My mind automatically goes through every possible scenario, right? I'm like, oh gosh, it could be, if I'm going to get this watermelon, now it could be rotten. I'm not sure. So I'm going to knock on it. Like I go through all the processes to pick the watermelon out. So for me, I'm going through every possible scenario before we actually get to something, because I'm like picturing it all out. And you build yourself up to this big level of fear that you almost don't want to like get it to the finish line, because you're like, oh gosh, all these bad things could possibly happen. But they give the example of when you get ready to jump out of the plane, you're like nervous. You're like, oh my gosh, should I go? And then they say the minute you jump, all fear is gone. And I think that's what happens. Once you finally make a decision, you feel so much better. You're like, that was so stupid to like think of all these different scenarios.
It is so hot in here. I am like sweating all day. I have
She's
been
like
just
looking around.
I feel like I'm excited because I feel like my thyroid's functioning, but I'd love to put up on this screen,
the
if
disc?
we can, the disc score. Cool. But do you know the disc score? Are you familiar with it?
I've been really into the Enneagram lately. Have y'all ever played with that?
I've played with it a little bit.
Yeah, that's been what I've been into lately.
It is?
I love the disc. The disc is solid and time tested.
All right, so explain to everyone just a brief what you feel like is that. What is a D? What is an I? What is an S? And what is a C?
I know I'm a DI, and that's all I really know. I don't know. I don't even remember what the S is.
Okay, so give us a brief overview of what a D, an I, an S, and a C.
What are you?
So
I want to know.
I'll tell you right after she tells you.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So a D is direct, demanding, decisive. They like things done quickly, chop, task oriented, like let's get it done, move it forward. Managers, leaders, like they are like big picture thinkers, movers and shakers. I's are fun, life of the party. Everyone likes to be around them. They don't like to work alone. They like to be in groups. Don't set them in a cubicle by themselves. They will wander, find other people to talk to. They're just really good, fun person. S's are very steady. They like to do the same thing over and over again. They don't love change. They love to have the same task list and let me just do it every day and I'll do it at my best. They're very empathetic. Like they are very compassionate towards people. So you can go and they'll listen to all your problems. And then C's are very detailed researchers. They will make decisions, but they're going to have all the facts before they make a decision. They like things in order. They're very orderly. Like an accountant would be a very high C.
Cool.
So you would say, so right up here, here's the disc score. So what would you say? 1, 2, 3, 4. If you had to put in place what you are, what would you say you are, T-Lane?
Yeah, I'm definitely a DI, probably a D1 and then I2, and S is super, super low.
So DICS would be yours.
Yeah,
okay.
DICS.
And I'm a
S is not even
there.
Yeah, it's gone.
Yeah.
It's not even on the chart. It's not,
Which is funny because you're a pastor.
I
so
know,
you have to turn
but
on your
that's
S
awesome.
at some point.
It's so funny. I say this, but a lot of time I'm not super pastoral. I'm not very I think most people think pastor, they think calm. I'm not very calm. I'm not very gentle. I'm more aggressive.
Yeah,
which is,
and I love it.
You got to have people around you to help with that.
So I'm off the charts D.
Yeah, I can tell.
Over the top D, but I'm also really, really high I.
Yeah.
So I'm super high D, high I, and then I'm a C, and then I'm an S. Okay. Heather?
I'm a CD, and then probably an SI.
And this is the thing with Heather. Every time you ask her, I'm glad that we have this saved
it's
and
recorded.
We're recording. Because every time you ask her, she changes it just
Whatever
a little.
I feel that day. Today I would tell you I'm a D.
I haven't taken it in years, and part of me thinks I need to retake it. But I feel like it's pretty accurate.
I'll send it to you. And by the way, if you want to take the disc score, we have a free copy. We'll put it in the show notes, and you can get it for free. By the way, all of our show notes are transcribed. So we've transcribed them all. So if you are more of a reader and want to go back and listen to any of this, you can. I think I have found one of the solutions to get people to finish. And what I believe is that what you need is, what I've done for a lot of years is I've had too many people under my direct report. And so if you've got too many people under you directly and you're trying to manage all those different things. So let's just say you're a leader and let's say you've got 15 people that work in your company. if you've got you and then you're managing these 15 people, you can't make sure that they're doing everything that they need to do. It's just way too many people, way too many tasks.
You'd never get anything done.
No.
Just watching over them. Yeah.
So my suggestion is ideally you'd have no more than 4, but at the maximum 5 people. And then you say, okay, here's these people, and you can keep up with that. But 4 would be the ideal. And you just go, these are the 4 people, you do that. And then anyone else, they have a direct report. But here's the key to it. This is the biggest key. Whoever is in this down line has to be over the top D.
Okay.
And if they're not,
then you're managing all their people.
yeah. So what's been happening
Yes.
before was I've done that where I've had these other people, but the people here were an S is a perfect example.
Yeah.
We had a girl that she was an S and she was supposed to be managing these people. It's like, and then you're now getting frustrated because this whole downline of you is not working.
Yeah.
Right.
Or they're a high I. One of the people in this downline that we have is a high I. Talk about frustration. No, seriously, it's just straight frustration because he's got a bunch of people under here.
Yeah.
He's not managing them. So I'm going to him going, okay, was this done? Was this done? Was this done? And it's not. That's one huge one. And I'll give you a perfect example of something. You know, we just had a small project that we gave to someone, and it literally could have been done in 5 minutes. Okay.
Yep.
So Heather, I gave it to Heather and I said, can you make sure this is done? I said, please make sure this is done by the end of the day.
I sent an email.
I need to get that out of my headspace, right?
Of course.
Because I tell people all the time, think about how many things, it's like this ball and this ball and this ball, all of them in my head. I need to be able to go squish, oh, look, and I have a prop.
And there it
There you
is.
go. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, look at this.
Perfect.
Yes.
This is
That's
the
her
best
brain.
prop
Great color,
ever.
This is
too.
her brain on ideas.
Great
Yes. And so every time I know that this idea is done, I can now put it over here. But if I don't know that the job has been finished, it keeps in my brain this whole time right here. And one of the things I tell people is like, if I have to come to you and say to you again, was this done? You failed.
Yeah.
You failed.
Sure.
And people will say, they'll say, well, I didn't want to bother you. And she'll tell them, I'd much rather you email me at 6 o'clock and say, just FYI, this was done, so she could take it off her plate. Like, example was, I knew she had people over last night, but we had a big issue I was working on yesterday. And I tried to call her and she didn't answer. I knew she had guests over. So I just texted her and said, I just wanted to let you know I have answers to what you needed, but we can talk about it in the morning. If she wanted to know the answer right then, she would have called me. But she wrote back, okay. And first thing this morning, she called me. But she knew what I was talking about, and she knew we'll talk about that in the morning. And she could take that off of her brain that night.
I've learned that soon means a lot to different people. For me, soon means immediately, now. But I could say I need this done soon. Or I need this done now. But for me, that means stop everything you're doing and do it. And some people, I've learned I have to give a very clear deadline of I expect it done at this time. I need to know about it or not, either way, because
Either way, if it's not completed,
Right.
if it's not completed, you still need to send me an email.
Exactly.
Just so you know, I know you wanted this done by the end of the day. However, this, and this came up. It will now be completed by the end of the day tomorrow. One of the things we did is, like this is dry erase paint. So we've been kind of, having people say their 3 things that they're going to accomplish no matter what and put it up on the dry erase board, and then doing something fun to celebrate at the end of the week if you achieve those goals. What else have you done to kind of help getting people to finish the projects?
this is a strange thing to say because I communicate for a living, but I don't communicate well the reason behind it all the time. Sometimes it's super clear to me, but I don't make that clear to whoever I'm asking to do the task or the oversight of the job. But bringing them alongside me or coming alongside them and making them understand why it's important and why it needs to be done, how, and how it fits into the big picture. I've noticed that helps people finish. And that's not something I do super well. I have to remind myself that, hey, not everyone's up here. They don't understand how this plays in, why we have to finish this first, and then we can move on to that. But I've learned when that when that light bulb goes off, I see a change. And that's something I'm personally working on in my leadership to hand off to my team.
One of the things that we've asked people to do at our company, but we just stopped it, and I'm not sure why we did. I think it's because people felt like they just said, you know what, that feels like it's micromanaging. So we were like, well, we don't want to feel micromanaging, so let's get rid of that. But what we had them do at the end, and it was really fantastic, at the end of the day, they would send their manager a list, and it would just be, here's all the things I'm still working on.
Okay.
And here's the things I've accomplished. That's it.
It's like a download.
It was
daily
like
download.
It was a daily download that you send to your manager that says, here's what I've got to do, and here's what I haven't accomplished yet, or what I have accomplished. And I think we stopped it really for that reason. What is your thoughts on doing that?
I think it's good and bad. I think if someone has a struggle finishing, I think that accountability is good. If someone is a go-getter, strong D perhaps, I could see them feeling micromanaged. You know what I'm saying? I could see if I'm always doing things on time or going above and beyond, almost looking like, do y'all trust me? Have I proven I'm not trustworthy? Yeah. But I would say it's a case-by-case thing. If someone has shown they need that accountability, I think it may be really fitting.
And I think actually what we did was we had people do it. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, why aren't we getting those anymore? Now I think I remember. What we did is we implemented it for the first 30 days of your employment, and we haven't had it. We haven't had anyone new in a while.
Yeah.
We've kind of, thank goodness, kept our team. Yeah. So, but that is one thing we did. So for the first 30 days, we said, or was it 30 days or 90 days? I can't remember. But anyway, we said, do this for the first 30 days, kind of so we can see, are you on the right track and where we want to go? And then after 30 days, you don't have to do it anymore.
Well, I'm glad you're talking about bringing people on the team too, because one of the things is like, how do you find out if somebody's a starter or a finisher before you bring them on? So one, what DISC scores are you looking for? Why is it so hard to find a starter and a finisher, like somebody who can do both? And I think it's because I believe that the starter finisher DISC score is the DC, and I feel that it's not a common DISC score. It's just not one that you see. You see DIs a lot. Like somebody who's a high D is also typically going to be outgoing. It's just what you see in the norm. Or they're the CS. They're detailed and they just like the steady Eddie. They don't necessarily like wanting to do anything out of the ordinary. I think the DCs are a little harder to find. You can find them, but they're a little harder.
That is interesting.
And if you look at that right here, see how it says on this side, these people who are DCs are task oriented, and the ISs are people oriented. Yeah. And then the DIs are outgoing, and then the CSs are reserved. Absolutely. And that goes back to right here. Yeah. The best person to be on the top of this, they can be a DC or a DI, or a CD.
Right.
The problem with a CD is that they are a lot of times so into perfection that it depends how high their C is and how high their D is. But you really need to make sure that those people are extraordinarily high Ds. And when you're interviewing them, the two things we do is we have them take the test, but we also validate it. And what I mean by that is, so we have you take the test, but then we say to you, I want you to look at this very honestly, and I want you to rank it 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. And that's what we mean by validating. And sometimes we'll have them take 2 DISC tests.
Because what they'll usually do is say, oh, I remember taking that. Let me pull it out. And I say, nope, don't pull that out. Yep. I actually am going to read you some, different character traits. And I want you to tell me what you think sounds like you. And I always tell them, you're going to have traits in all of them. I say we have a little bit of all of this in us. Otherwise, we'd be really weird. But I want you to pick the ones that sound most like you to least like you and rank them. And then you can kind of validate if a lot of times people will try to answer a personality test to what they think that you want them to be.
It's very different.
And they're like, oh, I thought this job wanted, this type of person. And so once you have them kind of rate their character traits, they come a little bit off guard and they'll give you a more honest answer. Yeah. But I think you have to also ask questions
Yes.
in the interview.
So what would those questions look like? So if you were going to hire someone, obviously this is super important. We want to know what their Discord.
Yeah.
But what other questions would you ask someone to make sure that they are a starter or a finisher?
Well, for me, it's definitely a little different. But I mean, for me, it's as simple as the last time you started a task or a project and saw it to completion. And if someone is like, well, if they're hesitant on that, I think it's clear that their finishing is not their sweet spot. Starting is easy. If I ask you what's something you started, everyone started a workout program or a diet or a thing, but when's the last time you saw it to completion and where is it at now? That I think reveals a lot. And if you can't think of something quick, because I can think of a lot of things I've started, but finishing, it's tricky. It's so challenging and hard.
I would say another thing is when I look at where they last worked, I would look at what their job was. And so like if somebody was like an office manager of a small office or a medium-sized office that was growing, they would have to be they have to do this, they have to do this, they have to start this and finish this. If you were, let's say you worked at Geico and all you did was answer the phones. Well, again, you're just doing that same job over and over. They don't even have the skills and the experience to start a new project and come up with it to take it to completion. What else, Heather?
Yeah, I'll say, give me an example of something that you implemented in your last job or in a nonprofit you're working in or an organization you're a part of. And how did that how did it turn out for you? Give me an example. And if they're like, well, I've never really done that, then you know they're not a starter.
Sure.
And if they do give you an example and they say, well, I did this and we hit a roadblock here, but then we persevered through, then you know they can get through different things you're going to give them and different roadblocks they're going to hit. So.
All right, so now this is going to be a tough question because it's going to be, how do you decide when enough is enough? You're just like, I can't babysit you anymore. I just can't babysit you anymore. I'm tired. You said you were going to do this. You said you were going to do this. It's just, I can't get you to cross that finish line over and over again. What would you say is, I know you're just not the right fit. We can try this all day long, but you're not the right fit. How would you decide that?
Well, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and not getting a different result. And we do that a lot of times because we really like people and we value them and we see potential. But if we are not seeing progress going forward, it's time to have that hard conversation and say, I love you and I value you on our team and I think you'll be a great support person, but I have to get somebody in place because I can no longer manage your department. And it's a tough conversation. It's not a conversation that you, of course, want to have. But sometimes they have to know where they have to sense the frustration. Sure. I will admit I am there in a point right now, and they know that I'm frustrated with them because I can't do it any longer, and it's uncomfortable for them because I'm not pleasant towards them anymore because I'm just like, why are we doing this again today? And it is, they need to be in a role that they can thrive in, and putting somebody in a role that they just can't succeed in it makes their life miserable too. And we have to put things in place to make sure that they can succeed.
Yeah, if someone is constantly in a role and they're constantly failing, at some point, they've got to be frustrated as much as we are. Right. So I think it's almost freeing saying, okay, we realized this is not the best situation.
And I saw this great post that was on Facebook like a couple days ago, and it was two ladies, and it said these two ladies were complete strangers. They were the last two people to finish the marathon, and they never knew each other, but they met each other on the run. That's and they cool. Held hands. That's and cool. They crossed the finish line together of the marathon. And that was a really powerful thing for me because that day I was very frustrated with someone on our team that just wasn't doing what they needed to. And that's what made me come up with this idea here of having, this person actually asked us, because we were going to hire a director of technology. And they said, they came to us and said, can we be the director of technology? And And we just were very blunt and we said, no, you can't. And the reason why is because you're amazing at starting. But guess what? Just like that marathon person, you need somebody to help you hold your hand to get you to the finish line. And that's okay.
Sure.
It doesn't mean you're not an amazing person.
Right.
And it doesn't mean we don't want you on our team. We love you. But because of the way God wired you, because over here, you're an IS, you need somebody who's a DC to hold your hand and cross you to the finish line. So there it is.
Boom.
We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Real Life Leadership. If you'd like to get the show notes or access more resources, log on to reallifeleaders.com/podcast to get the show notes from this episode and any other resources we might have mentioned. And also, we'd love to hear from you. Be sure to review or rate this podcast on Apple Podcasts to help spread the word. And if you have any leadership questions you want answered, email podcast@reallifeleaders.com.